And I am here with Ana Maria Caballero, Colombian American poet and writer. And my name is Anne Marie Alanis, host of Rare Digital Bird. And this is our first live stream that we're doing. And I'm really excited to talk about your work and who you are, Ana. Do you go by Ana or Ana Maria?
Anna is great. My friends call me Anna, so you may call me Anna.
Okay. And we were talking earlier about how tocaya, how do you say that?
Tocaya. Tocaya is what we, in Colombia and in other Latin countries, we call two people by the same name, like you and myself.
Yeah, so Anne Marie, Anna Maria. So it's so
Hmm.
great to meet you. I I've seen your accolades. You have a very long list of accolades and accomplishments. And as a Colombian American poet and writer, you have a lot of stories around yourself as a poet, and also you have work on async art that we definitely want to share today. I'm really interested in learning more about you, about who you are and how you started. So how did you start as a poet?
I mean, I began writing, Anne Marie, as young as I can remember. I began writing in the back of my school notebooks. You know,
Mhm.
you'd have a notebook per class basically, and I would start writing in the back of them, just my creative writing. Eventually, these my creative writing overtook the class notes, and I needed to go purchase new notebooks. And so writing has always accompanied me. It accompanied me through high school. I took my first creative writing class, and I published. I mean, I culled some poems from there that I snuck into my early application to Harvard University. And to my surprise, they accepted me. And I know it's because of my poetry and my writing. I studied literature there and went on to work in many different jobs that had to do with communication, with the transmission of information, the presentation, as a journalist, as a media relations officer for the government, the Colombian government, actually. And it was during my time living in Colombia, post college, living in Bogota, while I worked for the government there, helping with international press relations, that I began writing the series of poems that eventually became my first book of poetry.
Wow.
I never thought that that I would, write a book. And to my surprise, I gathered these poems into a collection called From Sunday to Sunday,
Mhm.
Entre Domingo y Domingo, which is a very much like roaring 20s collection, single in Bogota, love found, love lost type of urban collection, that talks about taxis and pizzas and nightclubs and drunken kisses on dance floors. And to my surprise, this collection was awarded a National Poetry Prize in Colombia, and it I was the first woman to receive this award, so that was a good thing to know. And it was second prize on another national contest. And by that time, my son had been born. My oldest son, who's almost 10 now, and I stopped working, so I had time to, obviously child rearing is very time consuming, but I had time to also work on my poetry. And since publishing this book in Spanish, I've gone on to publish two short books in English of poetry, and I'll have another one coming out next year, but I guess we'll get into that later.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the one thing that we're really excited about is Kylo Ren and the Divine Feminine on async art. Uh, can you tell us a little more about that? How the work is different? What is about async art that complements your work? Tell us more about that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, this story started off as a poem that I wanted to write, a poem about redemption. My son is obsessed with Star Wars, like many boys, and I am too. Actually, I think it's a rich tapestry of like lore and fantasy and action. It's just I've always loved Star Wars, and we've been watching these films, and you know. no, a spoiler alert, but Kylo Ren sort of gives up everything. I mean, he takes a lot, but he also gives up a lot for redemption. And then he started kind of crystallizing in my mind as a Jesus figure, right? This figure who has to give up his life to save others, and how the story had appropriated the Jesus story.
Yeah.
I won't say myth. I mean, obviously the history of Jesus and Christianity, into their own lore. And so the poem was about redemption, and if redemption comes at the ultimate price, if redemption costs you your life, if the sin is big enough, and asking sort of why that has to be so, why redemption has to be so expensive, if what we're doing is apologizing, if we're making amends. And I realized that I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to tell a story about a woman's own redemption and use that as a foil for her, this sort of grandiose character with a very typical sort of middle-aged woman with a job, at a news office, with a son, with a unsteady and sort of swirling marriage, cooking, cleaning, not sleeping, watching a movie, just a voice of the home. And I wanted her to sort of take the Kylo Ren myth to ask herself, what will it take for me to redeem my life? In a small way. I mean, her redemption isn't, paying for the death of her father, or anything else, but or the sins of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that small voice, that of failure that we all feel sometimes. Am I doing what I should be doing with my life? Am I living my life to the fullest? Am I really doing what's best? Am I a good mother? Am I a good wife? Am I a good worker? Am I a good human? And if not, then how do I become that? And do I have to pay for it with my life? And I had this story written, Anne Marie, probably we'll wait for the siren to pass.
Yeah.
It's okay. So I had this story written, Anne Marie, and I've published a few short stories. And to be honest, to publish is a very arduous process. It takes a very long time to get work out into the world. And once it's out, it's not always so exciting because these journals that publish stories and poetry sometimes don't have a huge reach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd kind of lost motivation with the story until I came across Async. And when I came across Async and the 24-hour canvas is when I dusted off the story and I rewrote it to happen within a 24-hour period, so that each hour on the hour, using Async's 24-hour canvas, a new piece of the story is revealed. And what I also love about this canvas, it's his circularity. That where you start, where you end, you start. You could start anywhere, you can end anywhere. And I think it's a great reflection for how our minds work, how our minds just kind of go around in loops.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel that we are living the same day over and over, but what we're doing is just thinking the same thoughts over and over. And so it was a very inspiring moment when I discovered this canvas. And when I pitched my application to Async, I sent in sort of a draft of the story saying, this is what I want to do. I have something ready for you guys. And within a week, I got an answer. So it was exciting.
That is exciting. I'm really, one thing that I heard you talk about was transcendence through the mundane. Can you talk more about that
Sure.
idea? Yeah.
So a lot of my work takes the mundane as a point of departure. We all have, to prepare meals, to, pick up kids from school, things like that are everyday and mundane. But while we're doing these things, we have these interrupted thoughts of what's the meaning of life, or a book that we read that really opened up our mind, and consumerism, and sometimes feeling like a pawn in this huge universe of capitalism, and and just demand and supply, and having to produce, and always having to deliver, right?
Mm.
And I feel that as women, that's even more marked, because we have to produce as wives, we have to produce as mothers, we have to produce as daughters. A lot of burden is placed on daughters, I feel, as sisters, friends too. Female relationships are also usually more demanding, in my experience, than sometimes male friendships. There's this like constant being there and showing up for others, that I find that as a woman, sometimes it builds up.
Yeah.
And so I take the mundane to sort of like expand on that, to highlight that, like all these little pressures just adding up while we wash the dishes, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's definitely it really is a heavy thing that women carry, that society puts, I feel, develops in all of us, this part where you have to care for everything and take care of everything. As far as how Kylo Ren and the Divine Feminine developed, like were there particular stages in the way it developed? Is this something that holds true with all of your works? What's the creative process to get to that point?
So usually the moment of inspiration comes very quickly, and I always try to write that down, because even if I can clip that moment into a paper, even if the poem ends up being 1 or 2 pages or a story, that moment of inspiration, that spark, will be in the piece. But it's very hard, if you don't grab it in the moment, to come back and like try to start from zero, I find. So the piece, as I told you, it was a poem, and I remember writing it after my son had gone to bed, and we'd been reading science fiction, which we both love, and had been watching Star Wars together. And then I just started jotting down thoughts, and then it started becoming a story. And really, I swear I had it on pause until I came across async, and I'm like, this is how the story is going to come alive, because the story has to do with time and circularity and all these things that I've mentioned.
Hmm.
Once I discovered the async canvas, it came together pretty quickly, to be honest, because I also like that there are hours where not a lot happens. There's hours where there's a lot of text, but there's hours where there's 2 sentences, because it's just kind of like not every hour of our life is highly productive or highly introspective, or we don't always have brilliant thoughts all the time. Some hours we're just like, whoa, where did the time go? What did I do with that hour?
Yeah.
So that happens in the piece too.
Yeah, that's so important because we are surrounded by media where everything is so perfect and everyone, like you said, has a brilliant idea. I think it really helps people to see this type of work where the mundane is also the highlight of the work. So that's very cool, and how you threaded that through into the story. Um, is this true of all your works? How you this creative process? Do you just kind of just jot down ideas, or have there been different ways that works have created itself in your mind?
I would say it's true for most of it. The editing and polishing is like 75% of the work.
Mhm.
The jotting down is quick; it's a flash, and then you go back and you clean it up, and you make sure that it's quality.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Um, I am really interested in actually having you perform one of your works. Is there a particular work that you want to highlight? A particular hour in your work that you want to highlight?
Sure. So the story Kylo Ren and the Divine Feminine goes around the 24 hours. So she doesn't sleep, and we don't sleep with her. So I have a 2 a.m. which finds us with the narrator, and the narrator has just finished watching by herself Kylo Ren and the Divine Feminine yet again to explore this final scene of redemption that has gotten under her skin. And it also talks about reading with her child. So I'm just setting the mood a little bit of the piece. So I'll read the 2 a.m. Another thing that I should mention to give it context is that there's an affair going on that isn't exactly drawn out between the speaker and her editor. And she's also obsessed with the figure of the actor of Kylo Ren. And she's, searching for him online. So the piece also talks about obsession, sort of these quiet obsessions that we have that are very private.
Okay.
2 a.m. The film ends. Is it early in the morning or late in the night? My body can't tell. I want so much more, but I want it to come quietly, without killing me. I go on the internet to search up the actor. I read everything the internet offers. Algorithms wager potential versus probable pathways to him. Is he a body who sleeps? My household sleeps. Does my editor sleep? Does he have a wife? The actor has a wife. They met at Juilliard. They are private. They share a small son. Their home is close to mine. In Tehanu, one of the Le Guin Earthsea books I didn't read to my kid, men are described as nuts, solid iterations of their own desire throughout. I am certain the actor is a kernel of salvation, certain that in his face lies something basic I might understand. At the same time, I recognize he is just another man, that his abdomen in real life remains unscarred. Solitude makes room for contradiction.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. So is there a reason why you chose this in particular? I know that it's being exhibited. Why did you choose this particular one?
This piece will be on display at Dreamverse in New York during NFT NYC. This particular slide, I think that it captures a lot of the themes of the piece, which is sort of quiet obsession, the female-male dichotomy, when it talks about Le Guin, who's one of my favorite science fiction writers, Ursula K. Le Guin. The responsibilities that fall on the shoulders of men versus women in the household. It also talks about reality versus fiction and how those intersect when we become a part of a story. And then it also talks about solitude and the thoughts that swirl around in our minds when we spend time alone, and how they get jumbled and they don't often make sense, but there they are, and they deserve to be heard.
Yes. I think it's so interesting that it happens at 2 a.m. Was there a particular, what was the time of the day very influential as far as this particular piece? I know like 2 a.m., many people are probably asleep, and these are when thoughts start to come and you start doing mundane things like searching the internet. I just think it's so interesting that it would be like at 2 a.m., as opposed to 9 a.m. during the start of a workday or something like that. Was that an influence at all?
Yes, definitely. So during the day, I take advantage of like the action that happens during the day. for more of the storytelling, like the narrative part, the setting up the story with the editor, setting up information about the marriage, setting up information about her job. So the narrative qualities of the plot
Mhm.
are revealed more during the day when things happen, as you say.
Right. Right. Okay. Let's talk about where it's going to be. How can people actually purchase this? Because they can purchase the master, the layers, the different out or the, all the different. I know there are particular layers. So let's talk more about that.
Okay, well, I'll share how this piece ended up being exhibited at Dreamverse, which is such a huge honor for me. One of the directors of a company that works with interactive NFTs, his name is Arif Khan, connected with my poetry.
Mhm.
And it's always such a joy when somebody connects with poetry, because you know that they devoted time and attention to it. It's not just like an image flashing before your eyes. It's something that requires a pause from your day. So that's always such a gift to me. And he happens to know the Dreamverse team very well, the Metaverse team, and recommended my work to them. And it's just such an honor, and I'm so grateful for that. It's just, it's a big deal for me to be here with artists that are so established in the crypto sphere. So the work will be at Dreamverse, and it's also on Async. So this piece, the 24-hour canvas, doesn't allow for layers or masters. Actually, you just buy. It's a 1/1, and you just purchase it, and the piece updates automatically
Mhm.
every hour on the hour, adjusted for where you are in the world. So it'll adjust to your time zone, so that 9 a.m. If you buy it and you're in Hong Kong, it won't have, my 9 p.m. to your 8 a.m. or whatever the time difference is. It'll be your 9 p.m. So I think that's a very cool aspect of it. So yeah, the piece is available on Async, and it's my first and only piece so far that I've published on Async. I have work on many other platforms as well, but this is the only one that I have on Async. And I'm working on a conceptual poem to share soon on Async as well, using the 24-hour canvas.
Ah, okay. So we have something to look forward to. That's
Hopefully,
very
yeah.
exciting. Yeah. I know that you had talked about, let's see. Oh, well, we should probably talk about where people can find it. So async.art is where you can find Kylo Ren and the Divine Feminine. Again, as you said, it changes autonomously every hour on the hour. So you can find that on async.art, as well as at the Dreamverse Gallery, dreamverse.io. It will be happening during the NFT NYC conference in New York. And there are tickets that you can purchase to access these different works, and especially Anna Maria's work, Kylo Ren and the Divine Feminine. So go to dreamverse.io and get your ticket if you'll be in New York, or go to async.art and you can find her there. So that's awesome. And you talk about also some upcoming works that you have. So let's talk more about that. Like what do you have coming up?
Okay, so off the metaverse, I have a book coming up next year. This book is called A Petit Mal, A Little Bad, and it won the Beverley International Prize for Literature, and will be published by a press in the UK, a London-based UK press, but it'll be available and distributed widely. This book is about an experience that my family had 2 years ago when my son started having seizures. And the kind of seizures he had were laughing seizures. And it started with a few every day that we just didn't know what it was. And then, we finally got freaked out when they kept coming and coming. And we took him to the hospital. We spent 3 nights at a hospital with him. And they were diagnosed finally as seizures. And I knew nothing about seizures at all. The only seizures that I was familiar with was like the poltergeist type, writhing on the floor seizures that you see in movies. And what I learned is that there's tons of different seizures. There's grand mal seizures, big bad seizures like the poltergeist ones, and then there's petit mal, which is the title of the book, which is small bad. And I thought it was such a beautiful, sort of evocative term to name something a little bad. You know, it's bad, but just a little. There's bigger bad out there, yeah. And so that's the title of the book, A Petit Mal, which is the type of seizures that he had. And, you know, there's absent seizures where people just kind of get lost in thought. There's seizures like he had that are giggling seizures, and there's falling seizures. Anyway, there's a whole world there to explore and to understand that is highly stigmatized. So the book, you know, one of the missions of the book is to educate about seizure disorders. 50 million people worldwide suffer from seizure disorders. And this isn't something that becomes a permanent handicap in your life. It's treatable. But the book also deals with Western medicine and alternative medicine. And the approach that Western medicine had toward healing my son, I found highly inadequate. Just the approach. I won't say the procedure, but the philosophy behind it, where it's always, you know, handling the symptoms versus exploring what's causing the root. Like there was never a discussion of what does your child eat? What does your child do? How does your child feel? It's always like, here's a medicine, go home and give it to him. So, and we also explored tons of alternative treatments for him, diets, you know, electromagnetic field work, energy work. We did everything under the sun. And ultimately, what ends up, I think, in my heart of hearts, healing our son is the combination of the two.
Yes, I am a big proponent of combining Western and Eastern medicine. That's so great that you had an open mind to those things. Yeah, tell me more about any other upcoming works that you have or that you'd like to talk about.
I'm sure. I guess I'll talk about, I have my first collection on known origin in terms of NFT work, and it's called Blueprints, and it is a subtle response to that question, that ubiquitous question of roadmap that is thrown around in the NFT world, and you know where art is headed, and where you are as an artist headed, that I found so honestly like jarring at first, because I'd never heard that as a poet in anywhere. So the collection gathers 5 poems that are about my process, my poetic process, sort of the inevitability of it, and how poetic creation is inseparable from just who I am and how I live my days. Writing, and you know, it's about, there's a poem, for example, that I'm working on now, that's probably the next one that I'll release, that's about being in a city and you hear music outside and it's Friday night and you want to go and you're going to go have a drink with friends, and then all of a sudden you take a turn and you find yourself alone in a quiet bar writing poems on the front and back of a red paper napkin. So there's that collection. It was featured on Known Origin, and yesterday was again a trending artist, so that was very exciting. 2 poems have sold out. They were released in editions, and I think there's 1 edition left of the 3rd poem, and 2 poems are coming soon.
What are the names of the poems?
So the first 2 poems, one is called Offspring.
Okay.
The second poem is called, the 3rd poem is called Natural Selection. And of course, now I'm nervous and blanking on the poem of the name of the second poem. But one of them was going to be The Napkin Trick. Those are the poems that I have on Foundation.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to see. Oh,
So
okay.
Natural Selection is the one that's available now.
Ah, okay. Natural selection. Got it.
Oh, Litany in D minor. Litany in D minor is the other one that I released. That
Okay.
is that one is all sold. D minor is supposed to be one of the saddest chords, so it's like a lament in D minor.
Oh, wow. That's such an awesome concept. I love that. Right.
And then I have a piece that you went through that's called Fruition.
Mm.
It's probably the most complex poem that I've released as an NFT. It's a philosophical poem that weaves the philosophies of Ralph Waldo Emerson and Goethe and the historical figure of Carl Linnaeus into a woman's experience cooking tikka masala for dinner.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay. And that
And
will
that
also be
one,
at Dreamverse, it seems.
they selected that as I think as like an attractive visual to
Mm.
represent me as an artist, but I submitted the Kylo Ren piece. You know,
Okay.
I think that that's what they'll feature
Ah, I
because,
see. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us?
I'm working on a manuscript right now, and that's
Mhm.
almost done. It's actually finished. I need to publish it basically. I'm sending it out to publishing houses. It's called Mammal,
Mammal, okay.
and it's about yep, that's one of the title poems.
Mhm.
This was a poem that I released with Ether Poems, which is from that collection. And Ether Poems, of course, is digital art chick, now Punk 24. Art chick's contribution to poetry in the metaverse. And she gathered a group of poets working digitally and launched this wonderful collection. And there's works by wonderful, wonderful poets such as Sasha Stiles, Kala Niwamoto, Margaret Laber, people who are well known and respected as poets, artists, and crypto artists as well. And so that was a closed collection that is over now. And Mammal is the title poem from my manuscript, which is now being shopped around.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Um, anything else that you wanted to cover? Or?
I'll share that I'm working right now on launching a gallery, an NFT gallery.
Okay.
It will be launched at NFT NYC in Giselle Flores's WOCA, Women of Crypto Art panel.
Mhm.
It'll be launched by my partner and beautifully talented poet Sasha Stiles. And it's a gallery devoted to presenting poems as works of art. And we are going to have, we're onboarding poets from the traditional poetry world. For example, we have a poet called Denise Duhamel, who's a Guggenheim Fellow, a National Endowment of the Arts Fellow. And we're pairing her with a couple of crypto artists to interpret her poems and to present them as NFTs. Another component of the gallery, apart from the curated edition, will be a series of Gen Text limited edition drops. We've partnered with Pseudowrite, which is an AI powered writing tool created by James Yu, who's an established sci-fi writer in his own right. And these will be generative text experiments on the blockchain,
Mhm.
couplets that will be mounted onto artworks by artists such as Giselle Flores, Rose Jackson, Ivona Tao, are all artists that have signed up to be part of this project.
Wow.
So it should be very
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Just having, there's probably like this element of surprise because it's generative. So I think that's really interesting. Um, is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience? Something, maybe a message of some sort?
Just, I'm very excited, Anne Marie, about presenting poems as works of art, both via the gallery and via my own work.
Mm.
I think that poetry is really going to come alive on the blockchain. There's a value that's inherited in poems, in the spoken word, in the written word, that hasn't been made manifest.
Mm.
And I think that, being able to tokenize it and trade it and infuse it with commercial value is a good thing. It's good for poems to be recognized as artworks, as drawings, as collage, as video art, because they are in their own right.
Yes. And you've been such a wonderful representative of this type of art, this type of work. Um, I have a fun thing that I want to ask you. I have a list of 101 questions. So if you choose a number, go ahead and choose a number and I'll ask you.
Sure.
Let's see.
29.
29. Okay, let's look it up here. Number 29. Okay. The question is, what is your kryptonite as a writer?
Oh my goodness, coffee.
Coffee is your
Oh
kryptonite.
no, wait, kryptonite is the bad thing, right? I'm getting my
So Superman, there's
yeah.
a particular mineral called kryptonite,
Yeah. That
and
kills you.
it like it renders him powerless, and he's like literally physically hurt by it. So,
Oh
is
my
there a
goodness.
kryptonite? If it's a hard question,
Um
you can ask. You can ask for another
no,
number.
I mean I would say time.
Oh, tell me more about
Time.
that.
I wish I had more time to write, you know.
Mm.
If there was more time, you know, what holds me back, I would say, is time and fitting everything in, you know, day job, children,
Yeah,
household. I
yeah,
would say time.
yeah. I wish we could have more of that as well. Seems like there's not a
Yeah,
lot of it, and there's so many things to do, and you have so many ideas. I know you have so many ideas that you want to put out there. So, yeah, time is a gift.
it
Well,
is.
thank you so much for spending some of your time here with me to talk about your work on async.art. Again, everyone, you can find it on async.art, Kylo Ren and the Divine Feminine by Ana Maria Caballero. And also, I wanted to make sure I said that correctly. And also, if you're in New York, come to the Dreamverse gallery. Her work will be highlighted there. Dreamverse.io is where you can get tickets. And I'm excited to see it in person. I'll also be in New York. Will you be there?
Oh, great. Yes, I am there.
Awesome. So we can
We
meet
can
in
meet.
person. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah.
The panel where the verse first will be presented is the Woka panel, which is Wednesday, November 3rd at 9:30 a.m. during NFT NYC. So if you go to the Woka panel, the Women of Crypto Art panel, you can see the verse first being launched.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here. Absolutely love your
Thank
work
you.
and can't wait to see your more of your upcoming works. Thank you.
Thank you,
Take
Anne
care.
Marie.
All right.
This was awesome. Thank
All
you.
right. Take care. See you soon.